After 9 grueling months aboard the USS Enterprise in the Persian Gulf, Sarah was finally coming home. I'd spent weeks preparing for her return, painting a welcome sign in bold crimson letters on a cream backdrop, simple yet heartfelt, to honor her service. Our modest two-story home, nestled in a neighborhood of tidy lawns and shaded streets, was meant to be her sanctuary. But our next-door neighbor, Helen Warwick, had other plans that would turn our homecoming into a battleground and expose a conspiracy that shook our community to its core. I'm an IT consultant, working remotely from our cozy home in Willow Creek, a place we chose 4 years ago for its charm and promise of a peaceful life. Sarah and I dreamed of raising a family here, surrounded by friendly faces and stable property values, thanks to an active homeowners association. 3 months before Sarah's return, I got a call from Horizon Realty, offering to buy our house for a quick sale at a tempting price. I brushed it off, laughing as I told the realtor this was our forever home. If only I'd known that call was a warning. The morning I hung the sign, I was buzzing with excitement. I'd taken a day off, scrubbed the house spotless, and set out Sarah's favorite lilies on the dining table. Our neighbor, Mrs. Larson, waved from across the street, her smile warm. "That's beautiful, James. When's Sarah back?" she called. I told her Sarah's flight would land that evening, and she promised to drop off a lasagna. Everything felt perfect until Helen Warwick stormed onto the scene. Helen, 59, was a widow and the HOA president, a role she wielded like a scepter. With her sharp gray eyes and hair always pinned in a severe bun, she looked like she was perpetually headed to a courtroom. That morning, she marched up to my sidewalk, phone in hand, snapping photos of my sign from every angle. She even pulled out a measuring tape, checking the distance from our porch to the street. Her lips pursed as if she'd caught me in a crime. "Is something wrong?" I asked, stepping forward. Helen didn't answer. Instead, she turned to Mrs. Larson's house and declared loudly, "Some people think they're above the rules. We'll see about that." Then she spun on her heel and left, leaving a chill in the air. That evening, I picked Sarah up from the airport. She was exhausted, still in her travel-worn uniform, but her face lit up when she saw the sign. "You made this?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. We kissed in the driveway, savoring the moment. Inside, I told her about Helen's strange behavior. Sarah, ever the strategist, shrugged it off. "Sounds like a power trip. Let's keep our heads down. I just want peace." But peace was the last thing we'd get. At 10:45 p.m., our doorbell camera caught Helen creeping onto our property in a robe, shining her phone's flashlight at the sign. She measured it again, muttering as she scribbled in a notebook. The footage, which I watched the next morning, sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't about a signet, it was about control. Sarah studied the video with the intensity of a battlefield commander. "She's planning something," she said. "The question is what?" The next day, an email arrived. Violation notice, section 14.2, unauthorized signage. The war had begun. I took the sign down, hoping to avoid trouble, but Sarah's disappointment was palpable. "You don't have to cave," she said. I admitted I'd checked the HOA rules, and Helen was technically right. Why taking it down didn't stop Helen. Fines piled up: $60 for a non-compliant gray doormat, $80 for flower pots half an inch too tall, $120 for my car parked improperly in our driveway. The most absurd was $30 for litter migration, leaves from our oak tree on the sidewalk. Each morning brought a new email, a new fine, a reminder we were being watched. Sarah grew frustrated, her combat-honed instincts bristling. "This is harassment," she said after a fine for uneven lawn stripes. We were already facing $500 in penalties for rules that didn't exist when we bought the house. Our neighbor, Tom Reynolds, a retired auditor, stopped by one evening. "Helen's been measuring your yard again," he whispered. "She did the same to me last year over my bird bath. Cost me $600 before I gave up." His words hit hard. This wasn't about rule sit, it was a campaign of intimidation. Tom also mentioned Horizon Realty had called him, offering to buy his house right after Helen's fine started. The timing felt too precise. The breaking point came on a humid Thursday. I was trimming our hedges when Helen appeared, flanked by Mrs. Larson and another neighbor, her voice booming. I'm the HOA president, and these people need to follow the rules, or I'll call the police. Mrs. Larson looked uneasy, caught in Helen's orbit. Sarah watched from the window, her posture rigid, her eyes sharp. When Helen stormed off, Sarah stepped outside. That woman needs a reality check, she said, her voice low but fierce. The next morning, as I trimmed the hedges again, sirens wailed. 2 police cars pulled into our driveway, and Helen trailed behind, her face smug. We got a call about aggressive behavior with a weapon, the younger officer said, eyeing my hedge trimmers. These? I asked, incredulous. Helen, standing behind the car, shouted, I felt threatened. He was waving those shears. Then Sarah stepped out, her presence commanding despite her casual jeans and t-shirt. The officer's demeanor shifted as she handed over her military ID. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Thompson, USS Enterprise, she said calmly. The younger officer's jaw tightened with respect. Just back for deployment, ma'am? The older officer, a veteran, thanked her for her service. Helen's smugness dissolved into panic as the officers turned on her. This looks like a false report, the older one said sternly. That's a crime. Helen sputtered, demanding their supervisor, her meltdown drawing neighbors' stares. Sarah and I couldn't help but laugh later, the absurdity of it all breaking the tension. But the fight wasn't over. The next day, a courier delivered a lawsuit from Helen and the HOA, demanding $20,000 for defamation and emotional distress. Sarah stared at the papers, her voice cold. She's using our neighbors' money to bury us. That night, I found her asleep on the couch, surrounded by legal documents, exhausted in a way the Navy never managed. I suggested selling to Horizon Realty and leaving. Sarah's eyes blazed. James, I didn't fight for this country to let a bully chase me out of my home. Tom knocked on our door, carrying a folder of documents. I've been digging into Helen, the HOA, and some odd coincidences, he said. His findings were explosive. HOA fees had spiked 45%, supposedly for legal costs, but no lawsuits existed before ours. Horizon Realty had targeted multiple residents with offers, always after Helen's fines began. Most damning, Tom found evidence Helen had accessed my personal email from the HOA computer, marking Horizon's offer as important. Sarah's military instincts kicked in. She's running a scam, she said, pacing. The rule changes, the fines, the lawsuit, it's all to force us out. With Tom's help, we rallied neighbors. Sarah turned our dining room into a war room, mapping out Helen's fraud with military precision. She uncovered Stonegate Services, a shell company registered to Helen, billing the HOA thousands for non-existent landscaping. Social media posts showed Helen flaunting luxury, purchases designer shoes, a Bahamas trip on the same days her company invoiced the HOA. Tom's doorbell footage confirmed no work was ever done. By Wednesday, 7 neighbors, including Mrs. Larson and a retired principal, met in Tom's garage, sharing stories of Helen's harassment and Horizon's offers. Sarah found Horizon's plan for a luxury estate, Willow Grove, needing our property for its entrance. Emails between Helen and Horizon laid bare their scheme. Harass residents, force sales, split profits. Saturday's emergency HOA meeting was packed, the air thick with tension. Helen arrived, confident, her presentation ready to paint us as troublemakers. But Sarah took the stage, her evidence methodical and devastating. She showed Helen's fake invoices, her social media boasts, and the emails with Horizon. The room erupted as neighbors realized their fees funded Helen's lifestyle. When Sarah played Helen's voice plotting to increase pressure on us, the crowd fell silent. Tom called for a vote to remove Helen. Hands shot up 32-1. Helen's screams of "I'll sue you all" only sealed her fate. Sarah announced she'd sent the evidence to the DEA and FBI for fraud and conspiracy charges. 6 months later, Helen's house sits empty, a for sale sign out front. She fled as federal charges loomed. Horizon's project collapsed under scrutiny. Tom, now HOA president, slash fees and restore trust. Sarah's sign is back, joined by one reading, "This home stands for justice." Willow Creek feels like home again, but the scars remain. What would you do if your neighbor tried to steal your home? Should HOA presidents face stricter oversight, or are they just easy scapegoats? Is it ever okay to fight fire with fire when your family's at stake? Comment below, like, and subscribe for more stories of justice.